just wanted to let you know that this call is of course optional, but we hope that you'll stay on the line with us and learn a little bit about how to protect yourself from fraud. We have some wonderful experts here in the room with us, and before we get to their names and their bios, I just wanted to let you know that you can be part of tonight's conversation. If you would like to share a story, if you would like to ask a question, all you need to do on your phone is press *3. And if you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can just type your comment in under the comment section, and we will we'll come back to you and read your questions. A little bit of housekeeping. We are broadcasting this on Facebook Live, so if you're listening and you want to watch and see what we all look like, please feel free to join us at the AARP Arkansas Facebook page. And without further ado, let me introduce you to our wonderful panel. Ms. Brittany Edwards is the Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Public Protection Division of the Arkansas Attorney General's Office. Brittany manages a team of attorneys enforcing the Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. She is a former Chief Legal Counsel for the Arkansas Department of the Military and has an additional 6 years of experience in civil litigation. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
My friend Shanna Raper, who we're part of a caregiving coalition together, is an independent insurance agent, and her position allows her to assist Medicare beneficiaries with their benefits, along with educating them on the options and programs available to them. And one of the things that Shanna does really well is she works very diligently to train others on how to protect themselves from scams and frauds when it comes to Medicare. Thank you so much for being here, Shanna.
Thank you.
And joining us via Teams, which is similar to Zoom, we have Juanita Jimenez-Soto, and she is the National Veterans and Military Families Manager for AARP. And in this role, Juanita has an opportunity to share with our veterans and their families about benefits that are available to them and continued opportunities to serve as a volunteer with AARP. But one of the most important things she does is she shares about frauds and scams that all too often are perpetrated against our veterans. So prior to taking this very important role within AARP, she spent 30 years as a communications professional, most recently in the AARP Texas State Office as one of their wonderful Associate State Directors of Communications. Welcome, Juanita.
Thank you for having me.
And I am just going to give you one more reminder that if you would like to call in, you just hit *3, and they'll ask for your name and the town that you're calling from, and you are giving us permission for your voice and your name to be used in the call tonight. Let me turn it over to our moderator, my colleague Chris McCoy, who is our brand new Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Mandy. I'm really excited to be part of AARP Arkansas and AARP, the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. At AARP Arkansas, we are the innovative champions for the 50-plus community and their families. We achieve this through impactful advocacy, community engagement, and education that empowers people to choose how they live as they age. While our state office is in Little Rock, we serve all of Arkansas, thanks in part to our wonderful volunteers across the state. And of course, we would love for you, in turn, we would love for you to turn your lifetime of experience into the experience of a lifetime and join our volunteers. Learn more about us at states.aarp.org/Arkansas, and you'll see that website flash on the screen behind me several times throughout the evening, so don't worry if you didn't get that written down. So let's go ahead and turn over to our panel. So, Britt.
Yes.
One of the things that we talk about within the when we deal with fraud is scams, right? I mean, that's the big thing that you hear the most about. One of those things being blackmail scams. What should a person do? What should I do if I receive threats from a blackmailer?
I think the first thing is to report it to law enforcement. If it's truly blackmail, that's the entity that will handle it. You can also report it to the Attorney General's Office, Consumer Protection Department. If it's part of a wider scam, that gives us more basis and knowledge about it, and we can try to help shut it down.
Makes sense. Is there anything in particular that I can do from like a consumer perspective to protect myself moving forward from any of these blackmail scams?
Just make sure that your social media, if you have any of that, your email, all your passwords are different. Your social media is restricted to the people only that you know, making sure it's the profile picture matches, not just a picture that looks familiar, like you actually know them, the name matches, because that's how they get your access.
Right. Be diligent.
Be
right?
diligent, correct.
Take, double check on what's being sent to you. If it's friends, make sure it's actually your friends who are sending these things to you before you give out your personal information to anybody.
Right.
Like that. Perfect. Shanna, kind of switching gears a little bit. I think a lot of folks, when we start talking about Medicare, and especially Medicare and Medicaid, they sound very similar.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say a lot of folks get the two mixed up. Can you just real briefly run through the difference between what Medicare is and what Medicaid is?
Yeah, I mean, just a very broad stroke overview of the difference is Medicare is that's your federal health care. Most people think it's only for people over the age of 65. It is not. It is also for people who are on disability. And so you will see younger people with Medicare. Once you're on disability for at least 2 years, you then automatically get moved to Medicare if you have the work credits available. Medicaid is a state program. So it's federally funded, state managed. They partner together, but it is managed by your state. And so that's what makes them completely different. Is one is state, the other is federal. And so that's the biggest difference. There's a whole lot you can go into, but those are the largest differences.
That's the broad strokes.
That's the broad strokes.
Good deal.
And Chris, I just want to break in just for a second and remind folks that you can be part of tonight's conversation by pressing *3 on your phone or making a comment on our Facebook Live.
Perfect. Juanita, I want to kind of skip over to you a little bit here. And speaking in the specific terms of veterans and these fraud issues that we deal with, and I'm going to ask just a very broad general question to kind of kick us off into this. Is it a federal crime to defraud a veteran?
It is. Defrauding veterans of their benefits is a federal crime. And I know that there are several bills, bipartisan bills, that are up that address the issue. Under one of the bills, defrauding or scheming to target veterans, their benefits, it could result into 5 years in prison, fine, or both. And in addition to that, I mean, think about it. There are so many veterans out there, just AARP alone, AARP members who are veterans, we're talking 6 million plus and growing. And in all, out of all the veterans, they are 42% more likely to become victims of fraud because there's just so much that they bring to the table, and these scammers know it, and they target them.
That's an incredible number. If we were to look at some of the most common scams that veterans have to work through, can you give us a kind of a survey of some of those ones that are probably the most popular that you see creep up the most?
Some of the most popular, of course, imposters and scams. These are folks who are pretending to be people who have power, who target these veterans and tell them, look, if I'm with so-and-so, I'm with the VA, or I'm with the benefits organization, and give us your information, we'll tell you what your benefits, what you're entitled to, and what have you. And they're not, a veteran entity, an organization will not call the veterans and ask for this information. The other thing that they target them is that they target them for their benefits. They target them because they know that veterans appeal to I mean, you know, they're conditioned to listen to authority, so they pretend to be these imposters, people of authority, to try to take money away from them. There are also phishing scams where they send these emails and try to get information from them via the internet, and they're pretending to be emails. They craft them to be emails from fake government entities, agencies. They're charging veterans for access to their information. This is access that they have for free. The veterans just have to call the VA Association. They want anything, any kind of information on their records, their military records, their benefits, what they're entitled to. These are some of the scams that are definitely out there and are targeting our very brave and honorable veterans.
Good deal. Thanks for that. Now, just one to kind of close the loop on that. What would you say would be a good practice for anybody that was getting any of these scam calls initiated, where they're not quite sure whether it's a legitimate call or not? How would you suggest they go about verifying that is an actual legit, or if it's a scam?
If it's a call, one, never give out your personal information. Social security number, your DOB, date of birth, any kind of military information. Do not give that out to anyone. Ask who's calling, get a number, and then go to your records, because you have records of the VA, or look up the information somewhere where you can go ahead and verify, hey, is this a legitimate call? Was this a legitimate call? But I will tell you, we're talking about, 42% of veterans who are targets. And about 58% of them, according to an AARP study, they worry about scams. And 90% of these veterans, according to the same study, they know that fraud is prevalent. They know that there are so many out there who are victims of fraud. And of that 42% that I talked about, that is just the tip of the iceberg, because there are so many out there who do not report the fact that they were victims of fraud, whether they feel ashamed or they're just mad at themselves, what have you. Can you imagine 42% are reporting these scams? The others are not, and we don't even know what percentage that is.
Yeah, that's huge.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, please do.
So one thing that we recommend is keeping like your local VA or whatever, a trusted source that you have met in person, that number handy on the fridge or somewhere. And if you get one of these calls, just hang up. Like, you're not going to be rude if it is a scam, like you've done the right thing. Mm-hmm. And if it was actually somebody trying to reach you, they will understand when you call the number, like you go to your fridge, you look at that number and you call that number back. Don't just hit redial on the phone. Right, so like Juanita said, looking it up through Google or something, but also just calling a number that you know is accurate and saying, did you just call me? And most of the time they will tell you, no, we didn't.
Are there any protections, especially for veterans here in our state?
We have veterans protection law. I mean, I don't know if Juanita has more. She can probably speak a little bit more to that, or no.
Well, I mean, the thing is, every state is different. The one thing that will help veterans is reporting the scam, reporting the fact that they have become victims of fraud as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. The longer you wait, the less chance you have of recuperating your money if they took money and information. Unfortunately, it's out there.
Right.
But you need to protect yourself and call the VA as soon as you realize it has something to do with those benefits, has something to do with your service record, and put it on record that you were targeted. You gave them this, so that there could be some kind of alarm anytime it goes up, or someone tries, or the scammer tries to try to get your benefits. There's some kind of alarm that goes up with the VA, and they don't get the money, or they get alerted. You get alerted, but that's the one thing that you can do for sure is tell someone, tell the VA.
And if I can speak slightly on this, it's not necessarily my expertise, but I am aware every state has a veterans office, a veterans hospital. They do have investigative departments. you can report that, and it can be investigated within the VA, within the Office of Inspector General. And so report those scams to your local VA office.
Because when we talk about veterans protection laws, we're talking about heightened penalties for people who go after veterans. It's not
Yes.
usually the veterans who get the benefit, but if they are investigated, if they're found,
Yes.
it is a higher penalty.
Yes.
And those are good tips too. I know that Chris and I have talked about this. Just speaking up when you've been a victim of a scam is a huge thing.
Yes. Yes, you're protecting the next person.
Right. And at the AG's office, when we get note that like one or, when it's more than one person, we see a pattern, we can do consumer alerts to get it out to everybody.
Yes.
Like just last week or the week before, there was a concealed carry scam going around where they notified people who had concealed carry permits, like, hey, something's wrong with it, we need you to call in, and we were able to do consumer alerts on that.
Yeah, and call law enforcement, call the FBI, call the FTC, you need to be on record. You need to let them know so that these scammers can be found. The chances are really low, but there's a chance, and you need to speak up.
Yeah, right. With the more people reporting it and it being in front of more folks, you have just more eyes looking at it, and hopefully through that process they can be found, definitely. But I think tying all this into it, it kind of segue a little bit over here, but even with tax schemes, you get this a good bit right now, right? And that's something that looking at it from that standpoint, there's a lot of similarities because they're calling individuals, they're the federal government, they're saying they're from the federal government, and they're calling it. I don't know, that might be the only person here, but I've never had the IRS actually call me on the phone. So they send, they're not shy about sending a lot of mail, but
well, and that's true. That's one way when you have a government imposter scam is most government agencies will communicate via mail. They still do print. They're not going to call you. And if they do call you, they're not going to threaten you. Like, you're not going to miss out on your refund if you don't pay $500 today. Like, that will never be the government.
Yes.
I know we like to joke about the government taking our money, but that's not.
And if I can add on with Medicare with that, because I know that, and guys, we have AEP coming, which is annual enrollment period. That is, we call that the Super Bowl of Medicare because people can make changes to their Medicare policies. And a lot of scammers like to target people on Medicare, not just seniors, anybody on Medicare, because we have people all the time tell us, well, Medicare called me. Medicare will not call you. Medicare will not call you. And just like Brittany said, they will not threaten you. Do not give your information to these people. Do not give luckily in 2017, 2018, Medicare gave people new cards that got rid of their Social Security numbers. Do not give that new number. Don't give your Medicare number. Don't give your Social Security number. Don't give your date of birth. Don't give these people this information. And the other thing we're seeing a lot with Medicare too is, guys, do not say the word yes. Do not say yes. If they ask you, is this Brittany? This is. Because, guys, if they get a recorded yes, guess what? You have just given them permission to enroll you in a new plan. And the danger in that is, I was just telling her earlier, we had a client, they were getting cancer treatments. They got a phone call from a scammer. The scammer moved them without their actual permission. The plan they moved them to did not cover their oncologist. This was a huge problem for the family. And so don't say the word yes. That is a big problem.
Going a little bit on a different subject but related to that. Sorry, I just hijacking.
No, please.
Don't say yes, don't say no. Be careful even saying like your name, because with the growth of AI, artificial intelligence, what we are seeing is they are calling, getting bits and pieces, and they're able to make your voice sound like it is. So like they'll take a grandchild's voice or something and send it to the grandma, and it sounds like your relative. And so one of the things that we've started advising is your family should have a password. Like if I call my mom and I say, Mom, I'm broke down on the side of the road, like I need you to send me money, pizza, right? Like that's not our word, but like there is a word that I'm going to say that's not going to make any sense in the context, and she can ask me for that to let her know it is me calling or one of her other kids calling.
Yes.
Well, speaking of calling, if you have a comment or a question out there, *3 or use our Facebook comment section. Chris, how do you feel about a poll right now?
I think it sounds great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, our first poll is this. According to the Federal Trade Commission's annual report, 2023 saw theft through fraud top $10 billion. The total is 14% higher than it was reported in 2022. Big spike in that. So for our first poll question, what type of fraud do you think resulted in the most victims? And I want you guys to think about your answers here. So I'm interested to see what our panel says. If you think that it's online romance scams that scammed people out of the most money, press pound 1. Pound is the one that looks like a number sign. If you think it is investment scams, somebody trying to get you to give them some money so that you can make a quick buck, that would be pound 2. If it's prize and sweepstakes scams, that's pound 3. So romance, pound 1, investments, pound 2, and prizes, pound 3. All right, I'll let you all continue this conversation. It's really nice.
Right. Well, you know what? To kind of continue where we were at, we talk about AI being able to pick up voices and then be able to use that voice to call grandparents, right? One of the things that we hear a lot about these days are grandparent scams, where they're getting the phone calls from their grandchild that is in distress. Have you had any experience with any of these? And if so, what would you suggest to people that are actually getting this? Because it can be scary. I mean, you're a grandparent on the other end of this. You're hearing your grandchild. You want to help them. Yeah. And the first thing that goes through your mind probably isn't, I need to verify who this person is, right? The first thing that's going through your mind is, I need, how do I get help immediately to them?
Yeah, I mean, we see this pretty frequently. Well, maybe not pretty frequently, but we do see this. It happened to my grandma, which is part of how we came up with this system. The number one thing is to have a family passcode. I think that because that's something that's only going to be unique to your family, and it takes 5 seconds to verify. Brittany, what is the family passcode? Other thing is, most of the time you've got other relatives, call and check, hey, did Brittany call you? Is my grandma, I love her very much, would not have always been my first call, right? I probably would have called mom first. And just hold on 1 second, let me call my mom, or let me call Cindy and see if she's tried that. Just verifying anything before you send money, because like we've said a couple times, once you send that money, it's gone. And just asking common sense questions. I know, like you said, you're gonna be panicked. But if I'm in Mexico, did you know I was going to Mexico? Right? Think it through. Yes.
If it sounds fantastical, it probably is.
Yes.
Yeah. And another thing that I've seen over and over is people will ask for gift cards.
Yes.
Or the new thing is crypto.
Yes.
Can you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. So they will tell you hey, we will give you $500 to go buy these gift cards, or we'll reimburse you, right? You just need to go buy them. Red flag number 1 is if they're giving you an amount that you have to go to multiple stores, because a lot of these stores will have limits on how many gift cards that you can go to. And then, no legitimate business is going to tell you, please go buy $1,500 worth of gift cards and we'll reimburse you. And we've had that happen. We've had people who have spent over $10,000 on gift cards because they thought it was going to be a job and then not get anything back. And what they'll do is sometimes they ask for a picture, right? And then they have all of the information, they can use it. And other times they just ask for a report that still gives them information where it may not raise as big of a red flag. But once you give those numbers, gift cards are largely untraceable. Companies have you bought it, you knew what you were doing. It's a hard thing to get back. So, and Bitcoin's the same way. Once it's in there, it's gone. So, yes. Anybody else can feel free to jump in if y'all have.
Juanita, are you seeing any of that with veterans where they're being asked to come up with alternate means of payment?
Not alternate means of payment, but they know about it. They know that these are and those two are the main ones, the gift cards and the cash to Bitcoin. But here's the thing, even knowing that, it's like that conversation that we just had. people, when you're in the moment and you think it's going to lead to something that you really want, or maybe something you've been looking forward to, or something that would really change your life, you don't, common sense sometimes goes out the window. We're human, and things like that happen even to the smartest folks around. But this is something that is gaining traction. The gift cards have been around for a while, and they are unfortunately not going anywhere anytime soon. But the Bitcoin, that's something that's relatively new because of all the cryptocurrency out there. Bitcoin is one thing that these veterans know is happening out there, and there are a handful of veterans who are falling victim to that.
The biggest thing I see on my end is people getting calls from people stating they are from Medicare or Medicaid, and that they can give their bank account and pay for like a credit card. Because when you get your Social Security card or your Medicare card, it's essentially a glorified piece of paper. And so a lot of people, they want the plastic credit card. So we're seeing some people saying they're getting calls saying, well, if you pay for it, we'll send you a plastic card with a chip in it. That's not legitimate. That doesn't exist. So don't give your bank account. It's going to be the piece of paper. You're not going to get plastic.
Good to know. I would not have known that. Thank you.
Yes.
And Juanita, does this, what you were talking about, it kind of sounds like it piggybacks a little bit off of, possibly with the military, some of the pension fraud that you see from time to time, where they'll call ahead and they'll say, okay, we'll give you a certain amount up front, more money up front. There's a way to get more out, squeeze out of the system, but we're going to need some information from you. And is that kind of in the same realm as what we were just discussing?
Yes, the veterans are being targeted because they have money coming in. They know, these scammers know they have money coming in, and because they know that being on a fixed income, maybe they're looking for some way to make it just kind of last a little more. And the most recent benefit is the PACT Act, and there's been a lot of fraud with that. And just so if folks out there don't know what this is, the new PACT Act law, it expands access to U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs healthcare benefits to more than 5 million veterans, 5 million. And they're survivors too. So these are veterans of Vietnam, the Gulf War, post 9/11 eras. So if they were exposed to burn pits or Agent Orange or any other toxic substance, they are eligible for these benefits. So some of these scammers know that. So they see that and they see dollar signs. So there's a lot of concern about, folks, veterans who are eligible for the PACT Act benefits as being easy targets for criminals, because they are calling, these scammers will be calling on the phone asking, hey, I can get you those benefits a lot sooner because the first back payment is going to be issued actually in August, and we can get you that money. So, but if you pay us, a fee to get you that, we can work around it. We're talking anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000s that they're charging these veterans. Mm-hmm. And 1 in 6 veterans say that they have been contacted by someone offering assistance to obtain their PACT Act benefits. And then 1 in 10 veterans were contacted, they say, with an offer to enroll in these benefits. And the offer guaranteed them a lucrative payout. Those are not things that are being offered. These veterans are being targeted because they have the money and these people know it.
Let me interrupt for just 1 second. Our call center is saying, if you are doing our wonderful poll tonight, it is just the number 1 for romance, 2 for investments, and 3 for prizes. You don't have to hit the pound key. So 1 for romance, 2 for investments, and 3 for prizes. So we'll be checking those results. I do see a few results coming in, so we'll check those in a few.
And just a couple tips for folks who are being contacted or they think they might be being scammed. Never pay for help filing VA benefits or obtaining medical records. I know I said that, but I think that that's really important and should be repeated. Do not sign incomplete agreements. If you're given something, oh, we'll fill it in later, and they sign it, don't do that. And always, always, always report. Contact the Federal Trade Commission at FTC, that's ftc.gov, and report any VA-related scam to the VA benefits hotline. And I have that number. It's 1-800-827-1000. Again, 1-800-827-1000. And knowledge is power. And we need to take care of each other too. So if you know that there's a scam out there, tell someone. Let people know, not just the authorities, but your next door neighbor. They might have family members who are veterans. They might have friends who are veterans. Let people know that these scams are out there. Knowledge is power. So let's not hold on to that knowledge. Let's let everybody know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one thing. I think there's an underlying theme that we're talking about right now, right, is, don't remain silent. If anything happens to you, you've experienced any of these things,
Yes.
you really do need to report it, no matter what the circumstance is. A lot of times, right, we don't want to sometimes admit that we were victims of that, and that's a powerful thing to overcome. But in order to actually kind of push through this and to have resolution and to fight back on these scams that are going on, it's important that we take the time to really reach out and do that. So that's, as we go on through the evening, that's one thing that I think we're going to keep talking about is no matter what, whenever it does come up, make sure that you do take the time to contact the proper authorities to be able to do that. And if you don't know who the proper authorities are, start somewhere. Call, local law enforcement, and a lot of times they will direct you into the right directions. When it comes to the VA, start there as well with the federal government.
Well, and Juanita's point about telling your neighbors, I think is a good one, right? You can certainly call the AG's office, tell us, but also tell your church groups, tell your friend groups who might also be in that same pool. I think that's a good point.
So let me share with you a little bit about the poll we just took. Based on the Federal Trade Commission's annual report, more than $4.6 billion was stolen through. Shanna, what do you think? Was it romance, investments, or prizes?
In my experience, I am going to say I'm going to go with romance. I see a lot of people that are lonely.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm going to say romance.
Okay. Juanita, what do you think?
I agree. Isolation is a big motivator for people. When someone's showing, someone that feels that's in that situation. And I'm gonna go with romance.
So 2 for romance. What, Brittany?
Okay. So 1, I did not know there was going to be a quiz. We do see a lot of romance schemes, but if we're looking at how much money is lost, I think I'm going to go with investments.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
I think we'll go with investments as well.
Oh, wow.
Oh, split panel.
50-50. Well, just like our online folks, we are split 50-50 between online scams and investments. So here's the answer. $4.6 billion was stolen through investment scams. Many of the investment scams were tied to the cryptocurrency, where consumers reported $1.4 billion stolen. And this goes back to what you all were just talking, reported. These are just tips of the iceberg because so many people don't report them. The most frequently reported scams were imposter scams, which is very much what we've been talking about, where someone calls in and you think that you're speaking to someone that you trust, a government agent or a charity, and all of a sudden you're giving them gift cards and you're out that money. Lastly, the most popular method for criminals to reach their victims in 2023 was, drum roll please, email. It
Yeah.
actually emails surpass text messages and phone calls, which have led for the last few years, which is very surprising.
Yeah.
I hate to say maybe we're letting our guards down a little bit online because we've all gotten so, fixated on the text messages coming through.
Yeah.
So keep your guard up all around.
Mhm.
We do have one more poll for tonight, and this is an easy one. Have you or a family member or a close friend been a victim of fraud or scam? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Easy one to answer. 1 for yes and 2 for no. All right, Chris, head back to you guys.
So, let's talk real quick about Medicare.
Yeah.
You talked about earlier, and this is kind of a piggyback off of this, where
Okay.
you were saying that be careful what you say. Don't say yes, don't say certain words, right? Because you've seen where they were able to change their types of insurance they had.
Absolutely.
To it. Out of curiosity, and do you know the resolution to that? Because I would imagine if someone's changing the insurance, there might be some level of trail to it.
I mean, we have made phone calls to CMS, which is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and sometimes we're able to get it reversed if there's not an enrollment period. Hopefully there's an enrollment period available. We can just go ahead and make the switch. But a lot of times we have to call CMS. Sometimes we can get it fixed. Sometimes we can't. It just depends on what they decide, because they are the controlling factor. But the biggest thing is just being proactive and protecting yourself. That's the biggest thing. And if somebody calls and says they're from Medicare or CMS, hang up the phone and call 1-800-MEDICARE. Call them directly. Okay? Call a trusted local agent. And that's the biggest thing for people to understand too. If you're watching this, you're getting so many phone calls a day. I can be sitting with a client helping them, and guys, their phone is ringing 10 times in that hour. It's crazy. When they call, ask the caller for what we call the national producer number. As a licensed insurance agent, we are required to have an insurance license. We have a national producer number. Ask them for that number. We've had clients report back to us telling us that they have gotten responses of, oh, you don't need that, just talk to me, give me your information. We've had people hang up on them. We had one client tell us that the caller actually said, I'm sorry, we'll take you off our list. So it is having results. If they don't respond to that, then ask them where they got permission to call you. Because a lot of people don't realize that when we are licensed to sell Medicare, we are required to take federal testing, because there are laws that regulate us on how we can approach consumers to sell these products. We are not supposed to cold call. We have to get permission to call clients about their Medicare. So if they're calling you, ask them where they got permission. Now, to, again, piggyback off that, guys, be careful what you fill out online. Because if you fill out a survey, or if you say, you see something that says, we'll give you a free prize if you fill this out, you have just given them permission to call you, because you have filled out your name and your number or your email address. You've just given them permission. If you get a business reply card in the mail that says, deadline approaching soon, you need to change your Medicare plans, and you fill that out, you have just given permission. Okay? Be very careful what you fill out and send back. But ask the callers, where did you get permission to call me? Because you have to have permission. And so those are a couple of ways to protect yourself. But if you're still not sure, you hang up and you call 1-800-MEDICARE. You call the Social Security Department. They can verify if that is a legitimate company, a legitimate person.
Wow. Yeah. So a couple of things that, just to recap some of what you just said.
Yes.
One of the big things seems to be that if you have an insurance agent that you actually can trust,
Yes.
that you have a relationship with, right?
Yes.
It's one person you can call immediately and
Yes.
just say, hey, is this legit? What's going on? This is what I was told.
Yes.
That insurance agent should be able to pretty quickly discern whether or not, there's something hokey going on with it. And
Absolutely.
be able to give guidance at that point.
Yes.
And the other piece is just be careful about any sort of response, right? You don't know what you're giving consent to. Even the smallest thing could open
Right.
that door with it. One thing you said, just kind of blew my mind a little bit with it is, if you are taken advantage of through a scam and they do change your insurance to a different insurance, that, even though it was a scam and some other people, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to switch back and you could be in a world of hurt
Yeah.
coming off of that. So that's pretty tough.
And it is, and it's tough for us as agents because we become friends with our clients, and to watch them be hurt by fraudsters, it's very underwhelming. It's frustrating because we can't always fix it right away, but we do our best to fix it as quickly as possible.
Right.
Yes.
This might be a good place to interject that as far as our poll, we're running neck and neck with people. 50% of the people who have voted have been a victim of fraud or scam or a close family member, and the other 50% say not so much. So before we take any additional questions, I wanted to just remind people about the amazing fraud prevention resources available at AARP.org. We often say that the only thing that those scam artists and those fraudsters don't want you to have is knowledge. They want you to have money and gift cards. They don't want you to have knowledge. The AARP Fraud Watch Network is doing some great work. And after this broadcast is over, you can certainly go to subscribe to the Watchdog newsletter, which keeps you abreast of the latest scams and frauds. You want to keep abreast of what those tricksters have up their sleeves. It's also a great time to mention a report done by AARP's Fraud Watch Network, FINRA Investor and Education Foundation, and Heart and Mind Strategies. And the purpose of this report was to raise awareness about victim blaming culture, and that's really prevalent when it comes to financial scams. We say, oh gosh, how could Mandy be so stupid to give someone a gift card like that? It happens to the smartest people, and these con artists are really good. I've seen some really amazing investigative stories where these people have been trained. They know how to tug on your heartstrings. They know how to make you feel like if you don't answer this right now, you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
Fear of missing out. So I've dropped that link to this really amazing report in the Facebook chat there. But one thing that we would like to really encourage people to do is reframe that narrative. So instead of victim blaming, we help people through this crisis. How can I help you?
Yeah.
I am so sorry that this happened. Have you gone to the police and talked to them? Have you talked to Medicare? Have you gone to the IRS? And help people through this rather than making them feel like, how could you be so dumb? Because it does happen to the smartest people. All right.
And you're right about that. It's all about the words that we use. Instead of saying I was a victim, I was targeted, because you were targeted. And as you mentioned, the AARP Fraud Watch Network, it's a great free resource. And the whole idea behind that is to empower consumers to be proactive. So you will be informed, you find support there, you'll have a voice, and you will get regular updates. And in addition to that, I wanted to add that the AARP Veterans Fraud Center is an online education resource hub with info on the latest scams that are targeting our military community. You can also get tips on spotting other types of consumer fraud and specialty tailored resources to protect our veterans and military families. And you can be a part of that, and you can check it out at aarp.org/vets fraud center.
Yeah, any of the AARP resources, if you go to aarp.org and you use the search bar, you'll be able to find veterans information, fraud information, caregiving information, so much stuff, and it's all vetted, and it's wonderful. Chris, what?
Yeah, no, that's really important. One of those things is when we approach this, looking at it from a perspective of how do we help, how do we be able to cut down on these instances. And it reminds me. My father used to always say, if these folks who are trying to scam, if they, they're good. They've been phenomenal in some other
Yeah.
employment. Unfortunately, they chose where they're at. So that's one of those things. If you need any tips, suggestions, any resources, AARP is here to be able to deliver those for you through that process. So one thing we always talk about, and I kind of want to go back to the Medicare fraud, because you do hear this broad term. What's Medicare fraud? And could you kind of go through like little, some maybe very high level of what it is, that some of the elements that they might see that folks might not be familiar with, that actually is a fraudulent activity, or they're trying to be scammed through the Medicare system?
I mean, some of the biggest ones we've talked about is just the calls that come in, because, guys, I mean, we're insurance agents. We make a commission. We do. So you want to make sure that you are talking to someone legitimate, because sometimes these people don't have your best interest at heart. They are just trying to make a paycheck. They're not checking your doctors. They're not checking your medications. And so we see a lot of fraud because of that commission, because these people have numbers they have to hit. Another way we see it is, a lot of people on Medicare, they're a very vulnerable community because they are lonely. They are isolated. They're retired. So they answer the phone. And, we see a lot of people offering free medical supplies. Well, if you answer these questions or give us your bank account, we'll send you this particular device. Guys, Medicare is not going to send you free devices. And so that's another way we see Medicare fraud. And sometimes if you give them your Medicare number, we are seeing that they take that information and they're trying to bill Medicare for these devices on your behalf when you're not getting these services. Or they're saying, well, we had a telehealth service, so they're trying to bill Medicare for the telehealth service that really never occurred, because they're not your doctor. It's fraudulent for them to do that. So don't give them that information. Don't accept this gift that they're trying to offer you, because it's not real. They're not going to send you something free. And so that is some of the biggest ones we're seeing, is they're really preying on their loneliness and their vulnerability and their fixed income. Let's be honest, a lot of people that are retired are on a fixed income, and so they're really preying on those vulnerabilities in our senior, aging community. We have 10,000 people turning 65 a day. That's a lot of people. So just be diligent in knowing how they're targeting you, and by offering you those free gifts, that's a huge target. It's not legitimate.
Yeah, that's.
Oh no, I was just saying, I didn't realize that many people were turning 65 a day. Like, that's just wow.
And it underpins the importance of understanding what it is you're walking into with Medicare, and it's a complex system.
And you're not going to be charged for it.
Yeah.
You are not going to be charged to get help with your Medicare. So don't let somebody convince you that you have to pay a fee to be helped, to get on Part A, Part B, C, D. It does not matter. There is not a charge. There is not a fee. You find somebody you trust. You call 1-800-MEDICARE. You should not be charged to get on your Medicare.
And I think that's a theme that we talked about earlier too, like government imposter schemes. Like the government is never going to ask. We talked about taxes, right? They're never going to say you need to pay the $500 or $250 up front to get your refund.
Correct.
Not even government, but lottery winnings. Like sometimes people get calls that say, "Oh, you won, a huge jackpot. You just need to pay the taxes on it ahead of time." No. Anybody that's asking you to pay ahead of time that you've never met, just hang up the phone.
Yes.
That was interesting, because I really never thought of it that way, and maybe I should have. But I just whenever I asked that question, back in my mind, how do you commit Medicare fraud? Like, genuinely, you give out your number, and how is that going against me? And the reality is, these guys are building the system and whatnot. So probably some of the things that you can look for, right? Looking at your statement of care.
Absolutely.
Are you getting care on these particular dates? Is it with that particular provider? With
Yes.
it? These kind of throw up those red flags, and if it doesn't, then you probably should reach out to Medicare immediately and just start that process. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you see, everybody gets an explanation of benefits from Medicare or from their Part C provider. They're going to get an explanation of benefits. And if you see something that is not something that you actually did, not a care you received, you should report it so that CMS can investigate and figure out if there is fraud being committed.
Yeah, and if you don't, it could, I mean, I know in instances, family members of mine, where they did have some chart or care that showed up that they didn't do, and then they got denied down the road for actual procedures that they were wanting to do, because in Medicare's mind, and they're looking at the charts and everything, they're saying, well, that doesn't make sense, you know, you've already done this, this, and this.
Yes.
So they get denied, and then it starts this whole process, and if care is of the essence, time is of the essence, then you're kind of backed up against the wall with that. So
Absolutely.
being, again, the vigilance, I think, is kind of underpins all of it from that standpoint.
I wanted to ask Brittany something before we run out of time. So for the average consumer, the person out there, maybe a family member has become a victim of fraud. What are the steps that they should go through? And I know you guys are at the top because you're the AG's office, but there's probably a series of steps that they should take before they end up in your lap.
Well, you can do, yeah, yes. It doesn't really matter the order. If you call us first, like, we'll help you do that right. If it's identity theft that we're talking about, we can help you get identity theft passports, which are verifying that this is who you say you are, and you can take it and when you're trying to get new accounts. In the interim, if it's bank accounts or credit cards, call those people, shut it down, say, you know, I think I've been a victim of fraud. Can you please put a hold on my account? Can you please close this account out? We recently had somebody who was really unique. They called the bank to shut it down, or credit cards to shut it down, and the person who had stolen their identity reopened, like called back and said, no, they're the scammer. Yeah, so it can get really intricate and really crazy, and we actually had to drive down with them and try to help, be like, nope, this is it, we verified it. But yeah, just if you know where the money is gone, immediately call and shut that down, because the sooner you act, the more likely the bank or somebody can stop the transaction or help get it back for you, if that is possible. It is not always possible. That's probably like the number one thing.
In my own personal experience too, you know, answering the poll of have you ever been, you know, a victim of fraud, our family has. You can also call Experian and have them put a hold on your credit.
It's a great tip.
Yes,
Yeah.
have them put a hold on it. And anytime you go to apply for anything, whether it's a car, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a bank account, you have to call Experian and unlock your credit with the passwords and everything that you have set up before they will allow that credit to be run.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
That is a really great tip. We have just a few moments left. Do you have another question, Chris?
Actually, just to kind of run down from, I think maybe a survey of your opinions here and suggestions, and for folks that, you know, whenever they do encounter this, you know, we've really talked about a lot here, but if you could, you know, think about it from, I guess, a 30,000 foot view and say, okay, you know, these are the things that you got to be aware of, and, you know, this is what you should do, and just, you know, like a concise kind of a closing in that sense, if you will. So we've talked about a lot. We've been all over the map here, you know, and so people that are listening and they're saying, okay, what am I going to take away from tonight? What would you say?
I guess two things. One, if it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. And two, just shut it down, right? Like, because I know I've said, like, hang up, call back. But also, we've seen, going back to the email comments now leaving, text scams are a really emerging way. And so a pop-up will happen and say, like, there's a problem on your computer. You give them access for 30 seconds to try to fix whatever it is, and they can go in and see where you've stored everything, and now they have your birthday, your credit card information, your bank account, whatever you have stored, passwords, whatever you have stored. Yes. So if you see something pop up like that, just shut your computer down, restart it, and move on.
Yes.
Very good. Well, you guys have covered a wealth of information tonight. Everything from Medicare, veterans, general scams here that people in Arkansas are being faced with. Thank you, panel, so very much. I know that this has been a valuable source of information for so many people. And I also want to thank our AARP team. That includes our volunteer Gary Jones, who is here with us, our volunteers who are screening calls. Thank you all so very much. I wanted to just say a special thank you to Chris, because this is his first Tele-town hall with us. His first, well, it's not his first event. We did a shred event.
We did.
And shredding your documents is a great way to keep from having identity theft and scam. We will be archiving the broadcast from tonight on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook channel. And please, AARP.org is a wonderful resource. And Chris, I'll let you take us out.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening for this Tele-town hall on fraud. That'll do it for tonight's call, and thank you for joining us. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The AARP event has ended.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you all for coming.
No,
Yeah,
thanks for
that's
having
awesome.
us. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, he's going to turn
Juanita,
off our
thank
Facebook
you.
Live.
Yeah. Oh, hi.
Bye, Facebook.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank